Thank you for joining us today. My name is Chris Fox, and I'm joined with my colleague Mike Schutte. And today we want to talk about some exciting work we're doing to help you reuse and share your work using solution templates and initiative templates. So, a little bit of background. ArcGIS, as you know, offers a lot of tools that help you build focused solutions to help solve specific business challenges. And these solutions are often comprised of a collection of items that work together to solve these business problems. So, for example, when you develop a configurable app using Web App Builder or one of the web application templates, you're often consuming a web map, and that web map may have some hosted feature layers and other services that are used by it. Or if you use a survey, you're going to leverage a feature service in the back end. And uh, those dependencies on each other are critical to support the solution. We here at Esri have built and allow our users to deploy a collection of over 200 solutions in many different industries, including state and local government, utilities, defense, intel, and business. And we know that our customers are also building their own solutions. And both we and you need ways to easily deploy these solutions inside or outside our organization. And today that's very difficult because, it's one thing to maybe move a web map around, copy a web map between orgs or between users, but it's another thing to try to grab all of its dependencies and reconstruct it, an exact copy or clone of those items for another user or another organization. And we're really trying to make that easier for everyone to author their own solutions and then ultimately deploy them. So, what are we doing to make this easier? One, we're developing and we have created a new item type called solution. And this solution item is going to define all the items and groups that are packaged up as part of that solution. These are the things that have dependencies on each other and are required to be stood up and working for the ultimate solution to work as expected. We've also created a solution.js library, a JavaScript library that can be used to both author these solution items and then deploy the solution template to an ArcGIS organization. And that organization could be ArcGIS Online or ArcGIS Enterprise. We're building an ArcGIS Solutions app. So similar to other apps in the app launcher, the Solutions app will be used for you to discover Esri authored solutions and deploy them into your organization. And we're also integrating solutions, the solution item and solution.js into ArcGIS Hub with our initiative templates. So you'll be able to author your own new solution templates. You'll be able to reference existing templates and initiatives, and you can package those as part of an initiative template that you can share with your users. So the solution item is a new item type available currently in ArcGIS Online, and it was available in Enterprise 10.7.1 and moving forward. And that item has two states, template and deployed. So let's first look at what is a solution item template. So the template contains the definition of all the items that are shipped with the solution. So it will contain things like the information about the item details, the data or the JSON associated with the item. So things like web maps and web applications and dashboards all store their definitions in the item's data. So we're packaging that up in the solution item template. We're also storing things like the item thumbnail and other resources with that template as well. And it's not just JSON items. We also support binary items, so items with downloads like Word docs, CSVs, Pro projects. So we can package those up as part of the template as well. When the template is authored, you're going to point to live items, and we're going to suck up the definition of those items into the solution item template. So it's really a snapshot of those items at the point that you author the template. And so changes to the original items will not impact the template. It truly is a disconnected snapshot of the item definitions. And so you can change the original items, you can make enhancements, and you can author a new solution template that will reflect those changes. The solution template is also going to store the dependencies between items. So, for example, a web app is built on a web map that references feature services. Those dependencies are stored in the template, and it's our way of being able to reconstruct those items in a particular order. And we can also ensure that when we lay down the feature layer, we know its new URL and its item ID. And when we lay down the new web map, we can update the reference to the URL and item ID to the new feature layer that was created in deployment. And when the web app is created, we can point it to the new web map that was created during the deployment. And we're storing variables to support this replacement. So we're replacing item ID references and URL references with variables so that we can easily swap those out during deployment. And the templatization process, when you author the solution template, is going to find all of these things and create those variables and replace them in the JSON of the solution item template. But we're also supporting more advanced features as well, like having item extent variables so that when we deploy a solution to an organization, we can automatically take the org's extent and replace it. So the web map and the apps are localized to the extent set by the organization. And we also support optional variables. So potentially in the future, if you want to provide parameters during the deployment that control what happens. So for example, you might want to change the title of an app based on a user variable. We support that as well in the solution template. So if we take a look a little bit further at the solution item template and think about some of the supported item types, we have a pretty broad range of item types that we currently support. So we support hosted feature services and views, both single and multi-source views, so joined views. We also support web maps, configurable web applications, either using configurable apps or web app builder. We support operations dashboards, survey 123 forms, workforce projects, quick capture projects. Python notebooks, so if you're using those to automate some workflows, as well as stringing together some items that are also included in the solution, you can deploy those. We also support all of the binary download item types, so pro project packages, zips, Word docs, PDFs, CSVs, basically item types they don't have item data as JSON. They're just binary files. You can package those up in the solution. Those are pretty straightforward because they don't have other item dependencies. You also can include groups in your solution item template. So for example, workforce projects leverage groups. We have some of the configurable apps like the minimal gallery that leverages groups, but you can also include groups that are just standalone and not dependencies of applications, but are used to organize content. So you can lay down that structure in the same org or a different org. And we'll always be evolving this. We have more immediate plans later this year to add support for hub sites and pages. We're going to be working on experience builder applications as well as story maps. And then as new items come up, we'll always be continuing to look to evolve and take advantage of those. And we really want to create an environment that any of the tools that you use to build solutions in your environment, we want to be able to package those up in a solution item. So the other state of a solution item is deployed. So the template defines what's going to be created. And then when you do deploy that solution template, we're not only going to lay down all of the items that were defined in the template, we're also going to create a new solution item that sits along with those items. And the value of that new solution item is it does a couple things. It stores a reference to all the items that were created as part of the deployment process, and it also stores the dependencies between those items. So the solution item in the deployed state provides a nice visual of all the items that are included as well as a dependency tree. so you can visualize those and understand how the web map is used by the app or the feature layers that belong to the web map. And this also allows quick access to individual items in the solution. So we provide links from the item details of the solution to those individual items so that you can quickly get to them and make adjustments or configurations. So let's go into a demo now of deploying a solution. What I'm going to be showing you here is a preview of the new ArcGIS Solutions app that's going to allow you to deploy Esri authored solutions into your organization. Under the hood, it's referencing the solution.js library to do that work. We're going to dive more into the code side in a little bit, but I really want you to understand the idea of how this works and how a solution template turns into things that are real and deployed in your organization. So here's the ArcGIS Solutions app. In this app, the primary experience is to expose a gallery of cards, and these cards all refer to solution templates that I can deploy into my organization. And so I'm going to go ahead and filter by state and local government, and I'm going to find my election-related solutions. I've already deployed a couple of the solutions. Now I want to deploy this election management solution. And we can learn a little bit about the election management solution. Its intended purpose is to be used by election staff to report wait times, manage polling place requests on election day, monitor performance, and gauge voter sentiment. So there's a lot of different pieces in this solution. I'm going to go ahead and say get now, and that's triggered the deployment process. So now this solution is deploying to my organization. And while that's happening, let me go ahead and jump out to the organization and show you what a solution template looks like. So you can see this new item type solution. We have the common information like the summary and description. But what's specific to the solution item is we're showing this solution contents. So this defines all the items that were included in this template. And like I described, these are all definitions of these items. So I have a survey and its corresponding feature service. There's actually a couple, 3 surveys included in this solution template. I have a web application that's built on a web map that is pointing to a view of a feature service and another view of a feature service. I have a dashboard that actually has 3 web maps and again is referencing some other feature services. And I also have a workforce project. Workforce projects come with groups as well as 2 web maps and the supporting layers. So you can see in this tree example, we can quickly identify the types of items that are included. We can see the dependencies of those items as well. That provides us a nice visual of that. And we have a understanding that these are the items that are going to be created when I deploy this solution. And like I described earlier, these are all snapshots of those items. So the definitions of all those items have been packaged up into this solution template. And that's what solution.js is going to use to reconstruct those items when I deploy them to my organization. So if I go back to the app, it's completed successfully. It's added this new card under my solutions. And let's go ahead and jump out to that solution. So this is going to take me to my organization. I'm just going to log in here. And now we're going to see a very similar look. So again, this is a solution, but in this case, it's been deployed. It has the same item information. That was all copied from the template. It has the same solution contents, but what's different now is the title of these items are actually links. So I can get to the feature service that's used by that survey by clicking that link. So it helps me jump to that content in my organization a lot quicker than trying to find those individual items inside my content or inside folders within my content. The If we take a look at the dashboard, for example, um, I'm going to go ahead and open this up. And what we're going to have here is a pre-configured version of the dashboard that reflects the state of that dashboard when I deployed it. None of the indicators have any data because we laid down empty new feature layers as part of the deployment. So this solution allows me on election day to start gathering requests from the public. It allows me to report wait times on election day and monitor those in the dashboard. So where the content is being driven through the use of the solution. So that's why having those empty layers is advantageous. In some cases, users might want to load their own content into the layers, and there's tools in the platform that can help them load content in. But really, the bulk of the challenging work of configuring all of these widgets and all the web maps and tabs that go with this dashboard have already been done for me because I deployed that as part of the solution. Again, we can also take a look at the workforce project. So just to show you that how that's been configured, I can open it in Workforce for ArcGIS. Again, it laid down empty layers, so I'm not going to have any assignments in this Workforce project, but I've automatically been added as a dispatcher. And if I create new assignments, the assignment types are already pre-populated, so I've eliminated a lot of the work that I have to do to configure that because it's already been done for me. The web map, if you've also noticed, has been localized to the extent of my org. So that's one of the variables that was in the template. So my org's default extent has been applied to all the maps and apps that have been laid down as part of that solution. So that again also makes it very easy for me to localize the content to my extent. So that's a deployed solution. You can see we created all the items. I also just want to go to my content to show you how that is being created. We create a unique folder with the name of the solution every time you deploy. If I were to deploy a second copy or I already had that folder name, it would create an election management 1, for example, and then election management 2. But all of that content was created. You can see there are about 25 items that were created in here. Some are views on top of existing feature services, my web maps, my survey forms, as well as a group was created as part of this deployment process. And all of that happened in around 45 seconds or so, so it's pretty performant in its ability to create that content. So when we talk about initiative templates and solution templates, so initiative templates have been around for a while. What they include are open data. So when you lay down an initiative template, you'll get a content group that can be used to communicate or provide access to data to the public. It also comes with teams. So you'll get a couple groups for the core team, so team members that have access to edit the initiative and administer it. And then you also have a followers group. So other users inside your organization or even community users can follow your initiative and you can communicate with them. You can send email notifications. It just helps people collaborate around the initiative. Initiative templates also come with events, so you can promote upcoming events and allow people to indicate whether they plan to attend. It comes with dashboarding capabilities, so built-in dashboards to help you understand trends and usage of your initiative site and participation in your initiative. And then it will always come with one or more solution templates. So at least one solution template will contain a site, and that will be your primary experience for interacting with the initiative and bringing that content together. But we're also going to support expanding that and being able to leverage all of the different item types that I talked about earlier when you create that initiative template to create the solutions and things associated with it. So if we take a look at an example of a actual solution template that we're working on releasing later this spring, the Transparent Elections Initiative template actually would come with 3 solution templates. The election outreach solution, which comes with a collection of web apps to allow voters to find where they need to go to vote on election day, as well as learning about who their elected representatives are. We have the election management solution that I just showed in the deployment app that includes the collection of apps to manage election day activities. And then we have the election results solution, which includes a dashboard that allows election officials and election staff to share out results after the election. So all of those templates could be deployed as part of this initiative template. And the election outreach solution template would also come with a site that would be would organize all of that content as part of the initiative. It would come with events on the site so I could promote upcoming dates about when I need to register by and when election day is. It would also come with teams so I could organize poll workers, volunteers who are going to work on election day. I could also promote a survey that would allow volunteers to sign up. I can also get feedback from the public so people can follow the initiative so they can get updates and provide their feedback about how they felt about the facilities, the staff that were working, the wait times on election day. And then ultimately, the content group via open data would allow me to share the election results and really provide the transparency back to the public so they have confidence in the election process. So if we talk about some of the release dates, the ArcGIS Solutions app that I showed you earlier, we're planning for the summer to release that in ArcGIS Online. So from the app launcher in ArcGIS Online, you'll be able to access the ArcGIS Solutions app and deploy Esri authored solutions. We're then going to make that available in subsequent releases of Enterprise. The ArcGIS Hub initiative templates. Initiative templates are currently available today, and they're already leveraging this new solution item. But later this summer, we're going to do more of a full integration with the solution.js library, and we're going to add support for packaging up hub sites and pages as part of those solution items. So the same solutions that are available in the ArcGIS Solutions app can also be made available and accessed through the Hub initiative templates. And you'll also be able to author your own solution templates through those initiative templates. But what's really great about this is today you can access the solution.js library and start creating your own solution items and deploying those items. So now I want to turn it over to my colleague, Mike Schutte, who's really going to dive more into the solution library and get into some code, which I'm sure you're all very interested in seeing. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike now. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Chris. Now, Chris has shown us how to deploy a solution. What we're going to look at is how to create a solution. A solution is created from an ArcGIS Online group. You create a group, and then you share each of the items with it that you wish to include into the solution. Now, you don't have to include dependencies, but you can. So, for example, a web mapping application has a web map that it can refer to, and the web map may refer to feature services. If you don't include them, the solution creation process will pull those in automatically. We give the group a tag called deploy.solution. This is helpful for us to tell the difference between regular groups and groups that are solution groups, solution source groups. We're creating an app that will make it easy for you to create solutions and for your organization to create solutions, and this will help with that experience. You can give a group a version or an ID, and these are optional. We will include those automatically with default values. They're handy for creating this, for when you deploy the solution to recognize when there is a new solution has come along. For example, you take a group, you create a solution. Now that solution's contents are frozen. You can now take the group, the original group, and modify it, add new versions, and then create another solution. And then that could have a new version, and that way you can track changes to your solutions. So I'm going to switch to is showing a little demo to create a solution. So here we have a group with a bunch of items in it. There are quite a few in it. It has the deploy solution tag that I mentioned. I happen to be supplying a version and an ID. We're using, internally we happen to use GUIDs or pseudo GUIDs for our IDs. Okay, so my solution has various items of contents. They could be binary, they could be text. Okay, so I'm going to now take the ID of the group, and I'll go to this little application. It's an example application that we provide that creates a solution. It's missing a real user interface. This is not going to be your user experience, but it's good for exploring in a very simple way what's involved, and you can see the full source to this in the solution library we have. Okay, so I'm going to create the solution now. And it doesn't take very long. This echo is one of the progress callbacks that is available from the library. Okay, let's look at the solution item we created. Here's the item. It contains the various items that I had in my group. These are simple items. They have no dependencies. Towards the end here, we have a couple items that have dependencies. A web mapping application has a web map. A form has a couple of services. These are all included into the web map. Included into the solution. Okay, let's switch to the developer point of view. What's inside a solution? How is it stored in ArcGIS Online? Every item in ArcGIS Online has a JSON base, a core set of information. It'd be the item ID, the type, the license information, the snippets, and so on. Now that's all JSON, so that's pretty easy to save. An item might have a data payload. So some items will have a JSON payload, others will have a binary payload, some will have nothing at all. So what we do is when we create a solution item, we create a normal item, so its base has the typical ArcGIS Online item information, but for its data payload, we're going to create a large JSON object that contains an entry for every single item in our solution. The entries will contain some base information about the item, its type and ID, but then we'll include the base information itself, not ephemeral stuff like created date, modified date, percent documentation, or anything like that, but kind of the important stuff for recreating that item in a new place. And if the item has a JSON data payload, we'll include the payload as well, as you see in this case where we have a web mapping application that has a JSON data payload. But of course, not every item has a JSON payload, and items also have resources, and they have thumbnails and other things. So we also want to include all of those. So we add those as resources to the solution item. Here you see a layer packages items thumbnail, but you also have the layer package itself. We have a few of the files that accompany a Survey 123 form, which has JSON payload, but it also has these other JSON files. So we include all sorts of interesting items here. And then going back to our echo of the creation of the item we created, this one is the solution. Here's the base. This is a sample program we include in our library. Here's the base information for a solution, the title, description, etc. Here's the description of all the items that are in the solution. We have an item running here from here to here. It's small, I realize to see, so let's make it a little bit bigger. It's an image, and because it's an image, it has no JSON data payload. So the data section is empty, but it's got this resources section that points to where in the solution storage, the solution item storage, it can find the information it needs. So we have here the actual data payload for this image, and we have the thumbnail for this image item. So we can go down into the solution, grab those two items, and put it into the new item when we deploy it. You'll notice that there are a few extra pieces of information added to the description of an item. You see it in the base, you also see it in any JSON payloads. We convert a number of things into variables. And we do this because items are linked by their ID. A web mapping application will point to a web map by way of the web map's ID. And the same with feature services and related items, all these things. But when you deploy this item to a new server or a new organization, or create new items, you're creating brand new items with new IDs. And therefore, these linkages mean nothing. So by using this format, we can use the original IDs to provide the linkages among the items in the solution, but we also have a way, because it's a variable, to replace it when we deploy the item. So each time we deploy the item, we take a web map, we get its new ID when it's been created, and then everywhere in the template that's being deployed, we replace that the variable for that web map in the solution template with the new proper variable of the deployed ID. And the result is we can recreate all of the linkages that we wanted. Let's go back down. I mentioned, okay, this particular item is a solution item. This echo program gets the solution item's thumbnail, metadata, but more importantly, the resources. And you see the resources go on and on. We have thumbnails, we have data files, we have just whatever is needed in order to store the items that are in this solution. All right. Now, let's look at how we can actually program with these, because working with solutions is difficult. There are a lot of picky details. There's a whole idea of storing the resources in the solution item and kind of tweaking them to get to resources will accept them. So we've created a library to make it much, much easier for you to create your own solutions and deploy solutions if you want to write your own applications for this. We begin with the solution.js library. It creates a solution item from an ArcGIS Online group, as I showed you. It deploys a solution item into an ArcGIS Online group, and that's what Chris showed you. So we got that underlying that app that you saw is this library call. It's an open source product available in GitHub under the Esri organization, and it's called solution.js. Underneath, it uses a library called ArcGIS REST.js. And I mention this because it's an incredibly valuable library for working with ArcGIS Online, because it handles authentication, and so you can make it easier to read and write, read from organizations and write to organizations, which can be tricky. You've got to get a token, you've got to append it to the proper way to each of your calls. You've got to refresh the token when it wears out. So this library is an important part of the solution.js library. It's also open source. It's also available on GitHub under the Esri organization. And to find out more about it, if you want to use it directly, there are a couple of Dev Summit sessions that talk about it. Okay, let's actually write a program or see what a program would look like using the solution.js library. We'll create a solution. Here I have HTML framework. I begin by including the library that handles my modules for me. I'm using require.js here, but I could easily use Dojo. We have examples in the solution.js library that show both methods. We'll mention the paths where to find the different modules in the solution.js library, as well as the ArcGIS REST.js library. We've broken up each of the libraries into packages so that you can use just the part that you want. For example, you might want to just use, say, an authentication and skip the rest. You can include just that piece, do what you need to do, and move on. It happens with creating and deploying a solution. We use a lot of modules, so we're going to need a bunch of those. But we will put the paths in here and then be able to, so that when the code needs a module, it knows where to find it. Here we'll require the two modules that we need for the rest of the code in this example. When we have those handles to the packages, we'll write our code. So here's the path that just kept wanting to pop up. We're using they're npm and unpackage compatible, so they're under the Esri tag. And here are the ArcGIS REST.js library modules that we'll use for this example. We host them in, or they're hosted in unpackage. Now, unpackage is good for prototyping and exploring. If you are writing your own app, you'll want to grab your own copies of these libraries and host them yourself to make sure you have reliable. Unpackage doesn't guarantee availability, but it's incredibly convenient for getting the latest copy of what we've put up there. Solution.js also has a set of libraries. You only need creator for creation, and you only need deployer for deploying. I include them both just so you can see what they look like. Okay, so we have our paths defined. We'll get to the code section. We've done the require, we've gotten the two modules, authentication, which we call the auth package, which REST auth, which we call auth here, and the creator. First, we get authentication with this type called user session. It's a type, a class inside ArcGIS REST.js that encapsulates all the authentication work we need. And it's something that the ArcGIS REST.js functions all need, and we therefore use in all of our calls for solution.js. If you are accessing ArcGIS Online, you'll pass an authentication item for those calls. One of the methods is a username and password. So I'll use that version here. And then here's an example to create a solution. We start with the group ID and the authentication, and we call create solution. And that's it. That's all you have to do. What you get back is either the ID of the created solution item or an error JSON. With that created solution item, you can then query to get the solution base information, its data payload, or the resources, like you saw in that one app that we went through that showed all those resources in a solution item. That just starts with the solution ID and pulls in that information. Okay, how about deployment? We take a solution ID and the authentication, and that's it. We call deploy solution, and it builds a solution for us in the target organization. Now, it creates this solution in a group in the target organization. This makes it easier to keep track of it, but also to keep from clashing with other items that may already be there. Included in the group with all the items that have been deployed, there'll be a solution deployed solution item. Now, this is different than the solution template that we created earlier on. A solution template has all the information necessary to deploy a solution, deploy a solution in your organization or another organization. Whereas a deployed solution item is really a table of contents, a kind of a listing of what you have in that deployment. So it can't be used to deploy further solutions. You always have to go back to the solution template for that. As with create solution, you get the solution ID or a JSON error set if this doesn't work. Now, by default, when you supply a group to create solution, the title, the description, the snippet are all taken from the group to create the solution item. You may not want that. You may want to override it. So a third option for create solution is options that has different things you can add to tweak the creation of the solution, like changing the title or adding to the tags, or just different keywords. Now you see we have the additional keywords. We have solution template. Now that's what a solution, when we create a solution, it has the type keyword solution and template, and that identifies it as different from a solution deployed, which is the one that after following deployment. There are two callbacks you see. The simpler one is console progress. If true, it echoes progress into the debug console. Kind of useful for just putting a program together and understanding how things are going. A little more complicated, you have a progress callback, which is what you saw in that simple app I made that was when we did create solution. It was the numbers were cycling. Those were all callback percentages from the app. It adjusts, the callback adjusts as it discovers new dependencies. It adjusts and so it knows how, when it hits 100%, that it's covered all the items. So you'll see some variation in speed depending on how many dependencies were included in the original solution group. Okay, now deployment also has options, same progress reporting and some other ones. I mean, there are a few more we are adding to let you fine-tune the deployment process as well. Okay, so now we've created all this. Let's go and look at these programs put together into a whole. So this one is the whole create solution. So you have the regular HTML, and there's just not much there. The paths take up a lot of space here, requiring the two modules we need to reference. The first one we'll call auth, the second we'll call creator. We'll use auth to access user session to make an authentication item, and we use creator to call create solution. And there is the whole program. We have a similar thing for deployment. The only difference being we have a solution ID instead of a group ID and a deploy solution. And we've changed the library here. We're going to use deployer instead of, and deployer here instead of creator in both places. For options, here are the options. In this case, I'm changing the options to give it a custom title instead of using my group, and then go on from there and providing the options for creation. And deployment is a similar idea. Now, there are other examples provided with the solution library. Under common, these are simple ones, just kind of exploring things that you can do with the common package. Convert and extend, copy item info. Copy solutions is one you might find particularly useful. It's for you can create where you might create a solution in one part of your organization, test it, feel comfortable with it, and then copy the solution over to another organization for your organization to actually use, a more public space in your organization. Get item info is the equivalent of what you see when you look at the internals of an item. All this information here came from get item info. So it's just an example how you might get all that. Solution creator is the create solution program that you saw here that we originally called this one. And there's equivalent deploy solution, which is a very simple one like the create solution. For deployment, there'll be a real app like Chris demonstrated, and eventually there'll be one for create solution, a real app for that. Implemented types is a simple one that just shows the what types are either already in both creator and deployer or are in progress. And so what it's doing is there are module maps inside each of those two modules, creator and deployer, that say, okay, for a web map, use this portion of code. For a web mapping application, use this portion of code. And if there's something in there, if there's a item type that it does not have a definition of code, implemented types will not show it. So it gives you a rough sense of what is usable at any given time in a solution item. In general, you'll find just about all file types will be included because it's kind of a simple capability. If you have a binary payload, it's just handled much the same way. And we have some resources for you. We have organizational high-level resources of ArcGIS solution information about solutions in general, ArcGIS Hub about Hub and initiatives. And for developers, we have 3 open source libraries you might want to look at. The solution.js and ArcGIS REST.js that I mentioned, and also the Hub.js for initiatives. Both solution.js and Hub.js use ArcGIS REST.js. So you see it's kind of a good foundational part. It also means it gets good exercise from the other parts of our system. And I thank you for attending.